There is nowhere to go. And if we continue to sit here and give up space because, oh, well, it's screwed. These people are all bad. They've taken over this space. They're just going to continue to cement further and further, to entrench further and further in those spaces and make it harder and harder for us to exist. Folks, we need to talk about TikTok, and we need to talk about it in a way that's actually constructive, because the truth is the censorship is going to get out of control, and there is no amazing social media alternative. There's no great social media network that's going to show up and fix everything. This is just what social media is. This is just what happens when you're dependent on online socialization from tech companies run by billionaires that have no politic and have all the intention to just exploit. So why am I saying this right now? Well, it's like over. Like, it's like so cooked. I need to show you this new community guideline situation from TikTok. If you go to the community guidelines from TikTok, you will see that this is the current one, and then they have a message on top on September 13th. We are updating our community guidelines so you can continue to create, discover, and share safely on TikTok. So this link you want to click on, and you'll want to look at these, and you'll want to take a look at some of the shit that they put in here, because it is ghastly. But to illustrate that, I will play this TikTok by this creator, Dre, from 6 days ago, which has gone very viral on the platform. So we can talk about, because she breaks this down extremely well.
Guidelines make me want to actually throw up. Like, I don't think people realize just how much everything is about to change in 27 days. You think your content is being suppressed now? Oh, girl. Before we even get to the content changes, let's go ahead and look at the community principles section first, because that underlines everything else. In rare and exceptional situations, such as crises or moments of social unrest, we may adjust our usual enforcement or rules to protect our community and address emerging harms. Yeah, it's basically a censorship kill switch.
So this is community principles here. In rare and exceptional situations such as crises or moments of social unrest, we may adjust our usual enforcement or rules to protect our community and address emerging harms while remaining guided by our principles. So this is the one that people are really centered on. Like, this is the one that really people are focused on, because it is essentially just saying, fuck the rules, right? Crises are moments of social unrest. You mean like every single day, everywhere? Like the things that are constantly happening? Sure. This is just anytime that there's a political situation, TikTok can act in extrajudicial ways to censor content.
The rules could change instantly and you would have no idea. Moving right along to the shocking and graphic content section, this is where they start getting kind of tricky, because according to the new community guidelines, they're going to start restricting content that shows the build up to serious injury or accident, even if the injury itself is not shown. And this targets the exact kind of footage that we need most. You know, like when officers draw weapons on peaceful protesters, or ICE agents attack people on the street and kidnap them while they beg for their lives. Like, all of that is going to get removed before this impending violence even happens. So you'll never see how these situations actually developed, or who started the confrontation, or if it even turned violent. Another fun one in shocking and graphic content is this little ditty, which states that graphic incidents during war or natural disasters now gets both age restricted and buried from your For You feed. In the current guidelines, this kind of content was just age restricted, but now it gets hit with a little double whammy. This applies to, I don't know, like a forced famine in Gaza, war crimes, same with the Ukraine, or natural disasters, or any real-time documentation of global atrocities.
This is so messed up, because people have shit on TikTok a lot. People have shit on TikTok as a place to get your information, as a place to understand the world better. But TikTok has been a place where I've found really good documentation of atrocities, for one, and really good coverage of atrocities that frankly do not get covered on mainstream media. But because TikTok has always aspired to be mainstream media itself, this has been a bug, not a feature. And they are thoroughly trying to stomp that bug out. TikTok is an app where people have done so much good work and are continuing to do so much good work, and all we did was just shit on it. All we did was just shit on the political content on TikTok. All we did was just pretend that TikTok is a place where there's nothing good to say. And now we are seeing a thorough movement from TikTok, the company, to stomp out TikTokers who have been doing this great work that has gone underappreciated and undercredited. And you're seeing the danger now of not having elevated that work in the first place.
This next one really pisses me off, okay? So in the misinformation section is one of the most insidious changes. It says that content that poses an elevated risk of undermining the integrity of the information ecosystem or eroding trust in institutions, organizations, or businesses is going to get suppressed. Businesses. Fuck my drag. That's my whole thing. My whole page is about exposing how these tech companies abuse user data, roll out predatory terms of services under people's noses, and collaborate with government surveillance and the DoD. Like, if you ever doubted that tech corporations were running our country, then let it be known. Oh, and you guys are gonna love this one. So also under misinformation, there are 2 additional pieces of content that will not be eligible for the FYF page. One of which is sharing unedited media that is presented out of context and may mislead a person about a topic of public importance. For example, showing a crowd at a music concert and falsely calling it a political protest. What a random example to use.
And for those of you who haven't understood or haven't seen, there have been uncovered political protests, like completely censored mass political protests throughout the United States. And in order to bring attention to them, TikTokers have been referring to them as like music concerts to avoid the censorship of those keywords. So this kind of wording suggests that they're noticing that conflation and they're going to be now designing a way through which they can censor that.
In addition to that, unverified claims about a crisis or a major civic event also will not be eligible for the FYF, which this is major because before it did not include major civic event. I feel like basically what this is going to do is just suppress a bunch of stories that give institutions enough time to shape the narratives by the time we hear about it. But don't worry, because while they're silencing independent journalists, the civic and election integrity section has carved out exceptions for state power. The old policy took a very hard stance in that they did not allow any political advertising, period. No ads from politicians, political parties, campaigns, PACs, advocacy groups, nothing like that. In the new guidelines, the policy states that government and intergovernmental entities are eligible to advertise on TikTok as long as they're certified to work with TikTok's internal team. So grassroots organizers or new political voices are going to have to promote their content organically, but state institutions can just flood your feed with messaging that's designed to look neutral. You know, heading into the midterms, I think that this creates a massive information imbalance.
So I want to cut it off there because I have things that I really want to say here now. And the first thing is that, again, this is tragic in part because it is a response to extremely good, extremely diligent, and extremely clever. I want to key in on that word. Clever work that TikTokers have done to preserve, to share information, to educate, and to essentially work against a lot of what algorithms have tried to program into people as consumers. This is also in that way inevitable because TikTokers have always, the TikTokers that have been doing good progressive work on TikTok have always been fighting that uphill battle, been doing things that eventually TikTok would catch on to and stomp out. This is the cycle. This is how it works, right? And so my first main point here is, similarly to my point that I made about YouTube and the age restriction thing that it's instituting, we have this reaction when we see these news stories about social media to go, well, just gonna have to leave TikTok. Well, we just gotta get offline. Well, we just gotta distribute zines again. And in addition to us just having this conversation about COVID and about how little people are doing to stop the spread, this idea like there's just somewhere else to go is not always the best way of thinking. It's not to say that we shouldn't be thinking also about creating our own platforms, but any platform of significant size with significant capital that is used to a significant degree by a lot of users is going to be very co-opted by capital, and it is going to be a struggle. It is going to be a site of struggle. So I need you to think of social media spaces not as places that we own that are being taken away from us or being destroyed irrevocably to damn us, but as sites of struggle. That's what they've always been. Years ago, even during the Obama administration, when progressive voices were trying to elevate news and insight about progressive issues, they were censored. We've known we've gotten censored. We've known we've gotten shadow banned. We've known that our content has not gotten the push that it should get. We've known that there have been rules and that there have been shadowy things that have pushed people into algorithmically accepting all types of cultural movements that were retrograde, that were reactionary, and that were dehumanizing, right? That's the thing. Like the thing. That's the way that this works. Life and justice and progressivism and advocacy and activism and revolution is not a continuous climbing of progress. It is an ebb and flow of success and failure. You are fighting against another group of human beings, let alone one that has so many more concentrated resources than we do. So you are going to do something, it's going to work, and then they're going to push back and they're going to figure something out. You have to think about your enemy as an enemy, as a party that is constantly thinking of new things to beat you in this fight. And so to cede space simply because, it's gotten bad, that's actually the wrong way to think about it. Somebody actually made this comment on the TikTok where it's like, this is just going to be like Facebook in 2016. We moved on to the next app. I think that's actually really alarming because you know what happened with Facebook when everybody left it is that most people actually stayed on, but the progressives left. The progressives gave up on Facebook, and Facebook became this space that had all these tools available. Facebook Marketplace, groups, event organizing that no longer were taken up by progressives. And look, I get it. Nobody can determine for you what's best for you to do with your time, where you can best put your energy, but you. You're the one who knows if you should be spending time on Facebook or not. I didn't want to spend time on Facebook. My time was better spent in other places in my mind. But that does not mean that everybody should just decide to leave. There is nowhere to go. You have to stand and fight. I don't know how much shit is just going to have to keep being obviously bad and getting obviously worse for people to get through their thick skulls that there is nowhere to go. We are on this rock. This is the place that we are on. And if we continue to sit here and give up space because it's screwed. These people are all bad. These people are all dumb. We can't deal with them. They've taken over this space. We have no place there. They're just going to continue to cement further and further, to entrench further and further in those spaces and make it harder and harder for us to exist. Existence is continuous, and so your fight has to be continuous. Your struggle has to be continuous. And I love that you brought up Twitter, because guess what happened? Twitter got taken over by Elon. Did it turn into this app full of right-wing bots? Yes, but it's also been a place where people have still done important work. And all this talk about let's go to blue sky, let's go to blue sky, let's go to blue sky. What are you doing on the app run by Elon Musk? Go on blue sky. And then what happened on blue sky? What just happened recently? Let me show you. This just got published a couple days ago. Blue Sky, censoring trans activism. Multiple authors were penalized for their posts on a platform once hailed as a safe space. Jessie Gender made a post saying that she wishes ill on J.K. Rowling and had been suspended. Was told that she supposedly violated Blue Sky's community guidelines for violent or threatening speech. And people were saying from the beginning, if you looked at the ownership group of Blue Sky, these people are just as entrenched in these authoritarian capitalist powers as everywhere else. But liberal thinking that is in all of us has taught us that what's important is not what we achieve, what we accomplish, how we strategize effectively. What is important is how we feel about the progressivism in the space that we're in. Not the progress that we achieve, but the space, the progressivism in the space. The fact that we feel like we're in a space full of progressives. And so, yeah, a lot of people have talked about how on Blue Sky they'll get jumped or censored or suspended for saying pretty innocuous pro-Palestine stuff, like pretty straightforward leftist stuff. Why? Because these folks have decided in a time period that is clearly communicating to them that there is nowhere to run, that they actually have somewhere to run. It's this nice little safe space where they can just feel like they have a nice little normal, quote unquote, normal social media app to talk about normal shit. And that's not to say that you shouldn't be on Blue Sky if you want to be on Blue Sky, but just admit that it's that and stop acting like this is a conversation about us having to do a mass movement to leave a space because that space is full of bad people. That is not going to achieve anything. Avoidance is not going to achieve anything. Retreat is not going to achieve anything. You have to decide for yourself, what am I capable of doing? If I need to retreat, then I will retreat. If I need to be in a space that's like XYZ, then that's what I need to do. I'm not a guy, me personally, Elliot, who knows how to use weapons And frankly, I don't know if you should trust me to get a lot of like physical shit done. I don't think that's not really my ministry. All right. That's not really my path at the moment, but I write and I talk. And so that's what I'm figuring out how to do for myself and for others. Okay. I do have to make money as well. So these are considerations that I make. And so with these considerations about my own skill set and my own needs, what can I do to be helpful? These are the ways that you should think about it. Not, oh, well, TikTok bad now, so get off TikTok and go to the other app. I saw people in this comment section, right? Literally saying things like, let's get on Reddit. Someone make a new social media platform already that's run by normal people. These are normal people. TikTok are the normal people. Skylight and Blue Sky. I'm going to Skylight. I'm going to Skylight. Yeah, I swear somebody here was like, get on Reddit. Get on Reddit. Are you kidding me about Reddit? What you have to think is, where can you be valuable? How creative can you get to properly push back in the space that you're in? To mobilize and build around people, to build around progressives, but also how to communicate to people who aren't progressive yet, who might be sympathetic to progressive ideals but doesn't really know them, isn't really in touch with them. This is what's going to keep happening more and more with your social media apps. Somebody asked in the chat, is this a sign of TikTok just capitulating to Trump's authoritarianism, or is this them falling in line with this global mandate that is being pushed on tech companies to do, the safety guidelines that are more and more surveilling of people? And what I have to say about that is like, yes, it's both, because what Trump is, and the Trump administration is the state in the United States that is most ardently declaring this movement by global capital. Fascism is ultimately a movement of global capital. Global capital decides whether or not fascism should happen or not. They institute fascism in order to really punch down on revolutionary sentiment as much as possible, on progressivism as much as possible, and institute a kind of death cult level of living. I always suggest Clara Matei's book. What is the name of it? The Capital Order. Not progressive yet. You are saying that like being progressive is the only and one right way to be and think, which couldn't be further from the truth. It is the best way to think. You should want things to get better, not worse. And of course, you don't have to do it all single-handedly. It's absolutely the opposite. Yeah. You have to think about the fact that you can only do very little / so much. And so where are your skills and talents best organized? And yes, that does mean too, like, push yourself a little bit, get organized a little bit, get creative, get out of the box a little bit, spend less time scrolling on social media if you're scrolling too much on social media, which all of us probably are. But think strategically. This is going to keep happening. More and more of these movements are going to keep happening by these social media apps, and more people are going to be like, what the fuck is going on? And those people, for those of us who have been educating ourselves and strategizing for the past years, those of us will see those people and recognize that they are learning what we have been seeing already. They're learning the knowledge that we have already been educating ourselves on. They're joining in our level of education. They're figuring out what we're figuring out. Does that make sense? Okay? Because that is ultimately what's happening. Yes, you can say in many ways the world is getting worse, right? Shit is bad. Shit is bad. And you just gotta admit it, okay? Shit is bad, right? But it's bad in the way that it has always been bad. It's getting worse in the ways that it has always been bad. And the way that it's getting worse is opening people's eyes more and more to just how bad it has always been. And you're not going to Gavin Newsom yourself out of fascism. You're just not. Because Gavin Newsom and his ilk is what got you fascism. The Democratic center-right consensus that has continuously pushed out, stomped out any left-wing sentiment or absorbed it and co-opted it into capital, that shit is not going to save you. There's nowhere to go. You have to study and fight. And yeah, we need for theory-conscious, ideologically leftist people. Studying theory is very useful. Studying theory is very useful, and you've got to study history. You've got to study history. Progressive is extremely vague and context-dependent. Anti-capitalist is core descriptive, decommodify the basics of life. Yes, but it's not either or. The reason I say progressive is because I'm referring to, in that case, people who aren't politicized. And so what happens is when you are politicizing, those of us who are on the left will put you on a path to begin developing your progressive politics. As you develop your progressive politics, you realize that the only way to properly be progressive is to be anti-capitalist. First you have to establish that, oh shit, things are actually pretty bad. They need to get better. That's what makes you decide to be a progressive. When you realize that things need to get better and you start studying the world and seeing how they're bad, how they've gotten worse, how they can get better, your study will make you realize that the only way to do that is by destroying capitalism. The spell is just going to continue to wear off for people. And the important thing that needs to be done is educating those people. This is capitalism. This is not a blip on the radar, right? This is not the whole shebang. This is a symptom of something that has been happening. And if we work collectively, you're being far too absolute with that statement of nowhere to go, everything all together. We need to work on creating a place to go while staying in these spaces. I mean, that's what I said though. You know, you can't just like look at one sentence that I said surrounded by a bunch of other sentences and be like, that's crazy that you said that one sentence. Nowhere to go, as in you don't get another planet. You don't get another political situation. You don't get to just put yourself in a more comfy space. That's just not how it works. Design better spaces, design better social media spaces if you can, but it hasn't happened yet. You know why? Because these social media spaces in part exist and dominate because they are instrumentalized by capital. So there's not just going to be a good lefty app. Frankly, people have been talking about it for so goddamn long. I refuse to continue to hold out hope that somebody's just going to invent good Twitter. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't keep trying to invent good Twitter or bring back websites or bring back blogs, forums, message boards, that you shouldn't keep trying to decentralize the internet in that way. But it means that part of understanding what you can do and what has to be done is by understanding that your choices are limited. What is alternative to capitalism that you would prefer? I don't know why I read your message like that. Socialism. Next question. I know what your next question is going to be. So you want to be like Soviet Union? I'm not here to have this regular debate, bro. I'm not here to have this like Reddit debate. I have a whole bunch of work that I got, man. You gotta check out that work. I want a world where there aren't a bunch of billionaires that control everything. I want a world where people have healthcare and they don't have to spend any money to get care that they need. I want a world where people have housing. I want a world where people can afford things. I want a world where people can educate themselves with others, where people can trust other people to take care of themselves and other people. No, I get you, Let's Talk. I get you. Sorry for making too much of an assumption, but the reason socialism hasn't quote unquote succeeded is because socialism is a project that is continuously evolving. It is a thing you do, not a thing you have. And so socialism is something that brought us so much in this country. Without socialist and communist agitation and work, we would not have had several of the social safety nets that are now getting cut down. By forgetting that it is a continuous fight though, and by having decimated the left to such a degree, so much of that stuff is getting pushed back now. So much of that stuff is getting destroyed now. This is a time period where we have to learn from the history, we have to learn from the past, and we have to decide, like, what are we going to do to get this shit back? To get this shit better than it's ever been. And that's where we're at. And Sailor Psyop says this quite well, because I'm not speaking very clearly, to be honest. Again, for obvious reasons. Instead of putting the onus on social media app companies to be good, we, as the users, have to compensate by being more community-minded / doing the good ourselves. Right? It's like when people are like, I want to find a good country. Where's the good country? I want a normal country. That's not happening. There's no good country that you're just going to go to that all the problems aren't there. So yeah, that's my big point. You know, TikTok is going to get more authoritarian, and you know what's going to happen? Leftist shit is still going to get done on TikTok. People are just going to get more and more creative. I hate the way that people have this anger and this resentment about like TikTok censorship and people censoring words. Oh, I censored this word, for rape or for genocide or whatever. Y'all understand that people do that because they're being creative and finding ways to work around censorship? Do you not hate censorship? Do you not recognize how significant censorship is as a problem? And people are still out here like, oh, I hate that they do this. You have to understand, we don't get the luxury of choosing exactly how we get to talk about everything. We don't get the luxury of choosing to make the rhetorical field the way that we want it to be. What we are doing is creating and figuring out and strategizing. That's it. And that's what's going to keep happening on TikTok. It's going to keep happening on this website and on other websites. As much as people are going to keep talking about, well, we got to leave, people are not going to leave because they realize there's nowhere to go. There's no better alternative, and that's not going to fix anything. They're going to figure out how to adapt despite all the draconian rules. They're going to figure out how to mobilize, and they're going to figure out continuously that this system and these elites have to go. Yeah, and I do have COVID. I was talking about it a bit earlier. I've been a bit like all over the place. Thank you for bearing with me.